Devin Pike with the Dallas International Film Festival, and I'm here with Michael Mohan, the director of Save the Date. And I've always been told that, and over again, films aren't released, they escape. And apparently this is more of a therapy session for Michael than an actual interview. So if you guys can just bear with me, we're going to delve deep into the psyche of a film director. Michael, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to, don't worry about that. We'll get to that in a moment. So you released your first film. Everything went fine. Where did you have the psychosis to go back into the director's chair for a second movie?
Oh. I don't know. I think, Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Save the Date. It's a light comedy, which you have to have pathos in comedy apparently, and unless you're Michael Bay, you can have pathos in a supermodel as things get blown up behind them. But what really struck me about Save the Date was the characters were extremely thought out, very complex, and really well done. Like, people actually are in real life. When you're putting the film together, were you looking at something that was going to have that mix of really great characterizations as well as something that you could enjoy on a Saturday afternoon?
I think to me, whenever I go to the movies, I never see people that remind me of me, and they don't talk like how I talk, and and I think part of one of the desires to make this film is to make a film where at the end of 90 minutes it feels like you're hanging out with 5 of your friends, and and so it all just stemmed from me being sort of like, it didn't stem from this, but one of the goals was just to make a film that felt real.
When you were putting the film together, obviously the characters are massively important. Talk a little bit about the casting process and getting not only the musicians in place where they don't just look like central casting sent over a couple of hairballs in bandanas. The musicians were really well. The sisters were fantastic. Talk a little bit about putting the cast together for the film.
Can I sit up?
If you want to.
These aren't deeper questions.
No, I guess so. I'm sorry.
It's all good. The cast. I just cast my favorite actors. Lizzie Kaplan. I'm a huge fan of this show called Party Down that she was on. My wife and I, we watched the first episode on like a Tuesday, and by the end of Wednesday, we had finished the entire season, series, I should say. And then Alison Brie, Mad Men and Community. I mean, they're people who, I don't know. It's just like they're real. They're up and coming. They're not even up and coming. They have like this massive fan base. But to me, they're some of the best actors of this time of that generation. And I think to me, seeing the nuance that they brought to other roles, I knew that throwing them into this film, they would totally get the style of acting that we were going for, and they were all just such a pleasure to work with too. Really, like they're all really good people.
Both Lizzie and Allison, you bring them up. They're almost effortless in their characters, and you've seen their different pieces, and especially with Allison, because I adore every single person on Community.
Yeah.
But they're all such great actors that Dan Harmon had a great time throwing all those characters together and just in a big hodgepodge. But she gives a completely different performance with you, so you can tell that she's really doing well with getting into the meat of the character.
Yeah, I mean,
and Lizzie Kaplan, absolutely the same thing.
Yeah, and what's funny is we didn't actually have a ton of rehearsal on this one. They're all so busy. I know Allison, she was busy right before she was shooting the movie The 5-Year Engagement that comes out next week. And Lizzie, like all of them, Jeffrey Arend, we were working around his schedule with Body of Proof, and it just worked out. And what was actually kind of nice about the cramped schedule. This is a little bit of a tangent, but we were forced to shoot all of Jeffrey's scenes early on, and in the film, basically Lizzie's character is in a relationship with Jeffrey Arend. He proposes to her, and because she doesn't believe in marriage and because she's so afraid of commitment, she breaks up with him. and it sort of launched into this rebound relationship that's really intense. And so we had to shoot their relationship first. We had to shoot the beginning of the movie first, which was really nice because then when Mark Webber's character came in, Jonathan the Rebound, it was almost like on set, it was like, oh, who's this new guy? You know, where'd he come along? You know, and yeah, it was really, it all worked out. So yeah, no, they're just really good, and I can't say more about how. I mean, I could say more about how great they are, but they're just phenomenal actors. Yeah.
What's the most awkward public proposal you've ever borne witness to?
I've ever witnessed?
Yeah.
Probably my own. Yeah, no. When I was getting married, when I was ready to propose to my wife, it was around Christmas time. It was a few days after Christmas, and I knew I was going to do it, but I didn't have a ring because I couldn't afford a ring. But I knew she doesn't care about that stuff either. And we went into Boston. I was at home in Massachusetts, and we were in Boston, and I was going to do it right on the common there. And we're sitting there just sort of looking at people watching, and I'm like, okay, this is the perfect moment. I'm about to propose right now. And she turns to me, she's like, does it smell like fish here? And I was like, oh, yeah, a little bit. And I was like, okay, I can't propose now. And so we got up and we were walking, and we were like sort of walking down the street that I really love there. Yeah, and then it was just like, all right, I'm going to do this now or I'm not going to do this. So I just like got down on one knee and I was like, hey, Kelly, will you marry me? And she's like, what? Are you really doing this right now? And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a ring. And she's like, what? Yes. Okay, yes. And get up. And then I got up and we were walking. And then in that moment on, we were engaged. And it was just like, man. Yeah, and then afterwards, we didn't know what to do. Like, oh, if anybody wants any proposal advice, not that anybody's watching this for that, but figuring out your proposal is important, but figuring out what you're going to do like directly after is even more important, because like we were just like sort of walking around the city like, oh, should we go like get a bottle of champagne somewhere? And okay, you know,
maybe get a dessert.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Something romantic.
So my own proposal was probably the most awkward proposal,
but not nearly as bad as what we had.
No. I'm happily married. It's
fantastic.
Yeah.
I hate asking this question because it only has a very positive or very negative reaction. So
let's do it.
Save the date. When can people see it outside of the festival circuit?
Don't know yet.
And that's the one I didn't want to.
Yeah, that's okay. Really, if people want to see the film, they should go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/SaveTheDateMovie. Like the film, and I'm updating. Like, it's not updated by some corporate entity. It's me updating it.
It's not a kid from Malaysia who's like 12 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But after this, I'm going to. I'll be headed to Nashville next week, then Newport Beach, then Maryland, and we have a bunch of other cities announced too. But we do not have a release date yet.
Well, then that means everybody needs to come out to the Dallas International Film Festival and see Save the Date, because films like this need to be celebrated. Because honestly, I don't like romantic comedies. They never ring true for me. And that was the great thing about Save the Date, because it almost doesn't feel like a romantic comedy.
Thanks.
It feels like a really good comedy that has romance in it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, because it's also not really, like, it's a comedy, but it's not like people aren't falling down, or there's no moments where people are like telling a lie and then they have to like do all these wacky things to keep up the lie. So I've been trying to figure out, because I hate the term romantic comedy because you think of these contrived things. I hate the term dramedy because that just sounds boring. So what do you
made up word anyway?
What do we call it? What do we call this film?
I call it a comedy.
Comedy.
I call it a comedy.
Okay.
I mean, it
like
has
that.
romance in it, it has drama in it, it has really great characters in it, but I call it a comedy.
Okay, comedy. We'll do that.
So be it, so shall it be.
Yeah.
Michael Mann, the director of Save the Date. Dude, thank you so much for stopping.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.